Let's talk about one of the world's oldest board games. It was played by ancient Egyptians over 5,000 years ago, and it's called Mehen. But this isn't just any old game. It holds a fascinating secret, a central mystery that has puzzled archaeologists for a very long time. And today, we're going to unravel it. I mean, we have the physical evidence, right? We found these stunning limestone boards carved into coiled serpents. You may have even seen the famous one at the Fitzwilliam Museum. We have sets of tiny marbles made of ivory and stone. And then there are these incredible, intricately carved figurines of lions and lionesses. All the pieces are there, laid out for us. But there's just one problem, and it's a big one. Despite having all the components, the rulebook for Mehen is completely lost to time. There are no ancient texts, no tomb inscriptions, nothing that tells us how the game was actually played. Imagine finding a chessboard and all the pieces, but having absolutely no concept of what checkmate even is. That's what we're dealing with here. So to solve a mystery like this, we have to start where the archaeologists did, with the clues that were left buried in the sand for thousands of years. Let's dig into the hard evidence. When you look at the timeline, Mehen's history is just incredibly long. It first shows up around 3600 BC. To put that in perspective, that's way before the Great Pyramids were even built. It was super popular through Egypt's Old Kingdom, and then around 2300 BC, it just disappears, at least from Egypt. What's really strange is that it seems to have survived for a few more centuries in other places, like Cyprus. Why it died out at home but lived on somewhere else? Well, that's just part of the puzzle. Okay, so let's look at a typical game set, like the one we see depicted in the tomb of Hezi-Ra. You've got dozens of these little marbles, and then 6 larger pieces, usually 3 lions and 3 lionesses. But here's the thing, the contradiction that stumped researchers for years: those beautiful lion figurines are physically too big to actually fit on the narrow spiraling track of the game board. And that is the central question, isn't it? It's a physical impossibility. How could a key piece of the game not even fit on the board? Any theory about how Mehen was played has to come up with a good answer for this. To understand why this all mattered so much, you have to get this. Mehen wasn't just a game. Its name means the coiled one, and it's named after a massive serpent god. In Egyptian mythology, this deity, Mehen, would wrap himself around the sun god Ra's boat every single night to protect him on his dangerous journey. So playing the game was actually a ritual. Moving your piece along the snake's body was a symbol of your soul's journey through the underworld, trying to join Ra at the center and be reborn. So, with all that physical and religious context in mind, how do we actually piece together the rules? This is where the real detective work begins. For a long time, the main theory was based on a more modern game from Sudan called the hyena game, because it used a similar spiral board and dice. People figured Mehen was just a simple race to the center. But that theory could never explain the huge number of marbles, or more importantly, those oversized lions. But a newer theory, based on clues from tomb paintings, suggests something completely different: a psychological guessing game. And this is where researcher James Masters noticed a huge flaw in that old idea. If you look at the most detailed picture we have of the game from Hesera's tomb, you see the boards, you see the pieces, but you see absolutely no dice. So if there were no dice, how in the world did you move your piece? While the answer might have been hiding in plain sight this whole time. In several of these Old Kingdom tombs, players are shown with very specific hand gestures. They're holding out clenched fists, almost like they're hiding something. They're not rolling dice. It really looks like they're concealing something from their opponent. This leads us to this proposed marble guessing mechanic. So here's how it probably worked. One player hides a certain number of marbles in their hand. The other player has to guess how many. If they guess wrong, the first player gets to move their piece forward by the number of marbles they were hiding. Simple enough. But if the opponent guesses correctly, they get a choice: move their own piece or unleash one of their lions. And this is the brilliant solution to that whole oversized lion mystery. You see, the lions were never supposed to be on the track. Instead, they were placed beside the board as attacking pieces. An attacking lion would literally freeze an opponent's piece in place. To get rid of the lion and free their piece, the targeted player had to win a brand new, high-stakes round of the marble guessing game. This one idea elegantly explains both the purpose of all those marbles and the weird size of the lions. It just fits. So we have a pretty believable set of rules now, but that just brings up another huge question. Why did a game that was so deeply connected to Egyptian beliefs just
disappear. Let's take a look at Mehen's legacy and what its fate can tell us. You really can't talk about Mehen without bringing up its main competitor, Senet. Senet was basically the blockbuster game of ancient Egypt. It had a different board, different rules, and a whole different religious goal. And unlike Mehen, Senet's popularity lasted for thousands of years, and we actually know a lot more about its rules. So why did Mehen just fade away in Egypt? Well, the leading theory is that it was a perfect storm of cultural change. First, the religious beliefs that held the game up started to shift. The focus moved away from Ra's knightly journey and more towards the mythology of the god Osiris, which made Mehen's symbolism kind of obsolete. At the exact same time, Senet's popularity was exploding and new games were coming in from other cultures. There was suddenly a very competitive market for games that just left Mehen behind. When you look at the whole story, Mehen really shows us something profound. For these ancient cultures, a game wasn't just a way to pass the time. It was a model of their universe, a tool for ritual, and a real, tangible way to express their most sacred beliefs about the soul's journey after death.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The next time you walk through a museum and see a collection of ancient gaming pieces behind a pane of glass, what are you really looking at? It makes you wonder, how many other deep secrets about how ancient people saw their world are sitting right there in front of us, just waiting for someone to figure out the rules?